Welcome. Welcome to the Tramshed digital space. Welcome to this Zoom talk. My name is André Pink, and I am the Tramshed progression producer. And I'm here just to give a bit of context about this talk before we invite the moderator and the panelists. So progression, which is the program that I run for the Tramshed, it's all about opportunities for emerging artists. It's our artist development program for emerging artists age 16 to 25. It's a series of opportunities like master classes, courses, all for free, bursaries and residencies. And we also have platforms where we invite emerging artists to show work at different stages of development. And the whole season, the theme of this season has all been about children's theater. And it's about the companies, the whole season has been about the pioneers, the companies that have been really pushing the boundaries of children's theater. And it's a great honor to have the 5 artistic directors here to talk about it. But I'm going to start by inviting on stage our panelist, who is the course leader of MA Applied Theater at the Central School of Speech and Drama. She's a theater maker on her own right. There she is. And also has got a book in the pipeline. So Selina Busby, thank you. And I'm going to disappear and leave it with you.
Thank you. Thank you for that lovely introduction. I can't tell you how excited I am to be here. I absolutely love children's theatre. I'm not sure I'm supposed to at the age of 52, but it's one of my most favourite things to do is to be in a theatre at about 10:30 on a weekday morning, surrounded by 8-year-olds watching theatre. It's one of the things that I've missed most about lockdown. And the 5 artistic directors that we have coming into the space tonight, I'm really excited about because they represent probably my most 5 favourite venues in London. So I'm very, very pleased to be able to welcome into the Zoom room, the strange environment that we're in, Chris Elwell from the Half Moon Theatre.
Hello, hi.
Hi, Chris.
Thank you.
Justine Audibert from the Unicorn Theatre.
Hi, Selina. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Nice to see you.
Peter Glanville from Polka Theatre.
Hi, Selina. Hi, everyone.
Samantha, or as I know her very well, Sam Lane from Little Angel Theatre.
Hi.
And of course, last but by no means least, Jeremy James from the Tramshed, our host theatre for this evening, or the host of our Zoom room.
Hello, everybody. Good evening.
Hi, thank you. So what makes good children's theatre? You all work in different ways with different people. How would you define what makes good children's theatre?
I think one of the things that you pointed out is, I'm not sure that it necessarily makes good theatre, but that passion, that belief, that desire to make work for that audience is kind of half the battle. The amount of people who say to me, so what's the next step to, like, what the real job, you know, what are you going to do when you grow up? Like it's not the thing that I want to do. And that's, you know, it's a stigma that the sector has, and it's a real shame. But it sort of doesn't really answer your question. But I think there's something about the if you feel that it's a stepping stone to something bigger and better, or if it's not quite really the thing you want to do, but I might as well, I'll do it, then you've not invested in the real reason or the desire to do it. Anyway, that's my 2 pence worth.
I was going to say, I think one of the things that's very different in terms of children's theatre in relation to creating work for adults is just that you've got such a huge range in terms of the sort of developmental ages of children. You know, whether you're creating work for a 1-year-old or 3, 7-year-old, 9-year-old, 14-year-old. So, in terms of the question of what makes good children's theatre, I think knowing your age range, knowing your audience is really important. And I've seen, you know, a lot of work, and I know Chris has been with me at a lot of different festivals where we kind of go, oh, that just isn't for a 3-year-old, or that isn't for an 8-year-old. So one of the things that we tend to do at Polka is kind of encourage artists to spend time with children of that age, whether that's with a kind of children's centre or a nursery or a kind of year group at the school. And again and again, the artists say that was so useful. It was so brilliant, not just to kind of try out ideas with those children, but also just to kind of be able to start thinking about the child that is 7 years old or 10 years old, and really have a sense of where they're at and what the kind of issues or themes are that they're kind of that's part of their life, or what their world is, you know, what their lives are like, which obviously can be very, very varied. But I think that's something that really differentiates kind of creating quality children's theatre from adult theatre.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's a really fun, rewarding challenge trying to get that right. And we don't get it right all the time. Sometimes you make the show for the wrong age, but that's really, you know, that challenge is really fun. Yeah, there are 2 quotes really, both by Ken Robinson, the late, great, amazing, inspirational human, that kind of sing to this for me. One of which is that curiosity is the engine of achievement. And, you know, I think that's really true. And the curiosity that the audience tend to have, because they're children and they don't come with this whole set of predispositions and views, is really brilliant, and like makes me, you know, I want to meet them at their level and like make work at their level. And I think that's the thing you should be trying to do, is trying to, you know, and then prod them and poke them, and they come up with interesting stuff. And then, you know, the other thing I would say is, again, quoting Ken Robinson, but I just love this quote: young children are wonderfully imaginative wonderfully confident in their own imaginations. Most of us lose that confidence as we grow up. And selfishly, I want to play and stay in the world of imagination. Like, that's where I want to live. Like, what, you know, that's where future and hope and possibility and change live, in imagination. So I don't know. I kind of go, I don't know if that makes you make good work, but it makes you interested in trying to make good work. I think, which, you know, is half the battle. The skills, I mean, you know, we've all seen plenty of bits of theatre for adults, which are technically full of bravura, amazing thing, but don't have any heart or any soul or any, you know, because ultimately they're exercises in displaying your skill and your technique. Well, anyone can have skill and technique. That's just time and practice and money. Like, actually, the thing is to be bold with your imagination. And like, if you don't do that with children, they're bored, like straight up, and they don't care. So, you know, that's the way I think about it.
I think connected with that is the fact it's where you place the experience. I think the best children's work is where you recenter the experience, because so much work is made for all the right reasons by artists who are led by the I, the ego. And it's about placing that I, that space within the location of the child or the children or the adult or the teenager, whatever it is you're working with in that context. And I think that by doing that, there's an authenticity of voice that can be achieved, because only by allowing yourself to engage in an honest way, to relocate your eye to where the cauldron of those young people are, can you actually start to genuinely create a dialogue and an engagement with those young people to make an authentic experience. And I always think that we should always be careful of responding to the level of expression of a child, i.e. their outwardly facing way of behaving. Just because they're jumping up and down and being crazy, that's great. But actually it's their level of comprehension. Really understand where they're at, because their level of comprehension, be they 1-year-old, 2-year-olds, 10 years old, is as mature as an adult. And therefore, by placing the I within their cauldron of creativity, that you connect with that maturity and that level of comprehension. Because sadly, often a lot of young people's work can actually pander to the level of expression, that sort of moment of silliness and so on, which is important. Of course it is. That's, you know, it's entertainment and so on. but you do have to make sure that you don't just pander to that on all the time.
I think that's really interesting, Chris. I think we often talk about, and I'm always amazed and surprised by the emotional intelligence of children, and they have a way emotionally of engaging in things that constantly confound and surprise audiences. And I think I always love introducing new artists to working with younger audiences, because they suddenly begin to realize that emotional intelligence that children have, even quite young children, is way ahead of one's perception of children and sometimes the way they play. But it's, and that's something I think if you can make theatre that tunes into that emotional intelligence and makes resonance is with them. And I think that thing of the authentic voice, which is something we're always sort of striving to find within the work we make, particularly with the sort of teenage audience, it's very rewarding.
I completely agree. Sorry, I was just going to say as well, I think it's yeah, the difference between work that's kind of really nourishing children and work that's kind of maybe kind of exciting and entertaining, but is kind of fast food that is then sort of it doesn't kind of resonate afterwards. And I just it kind of reminded me of taking my daughter to see Cassa, which was a sort of play by an Italian company called La Baracca, which was at Polka, and at the end, and it was quite abstract but a beautiful piece about a kind of a child and an adult constructing their home together and then building kind of blocks to be able to have a pathway out of that, to have a kind of ongoing journey. And at the end, Iris didn't say anything. I sort of said, did you enjoy it? She didn't really want to talk about it. The tube journey home, she didn't want to talk about it. And then the next morning, kind of went into her bedroom, and she was up and she'd taken all of her books out of the bookshelves and made all these different pathways with books that are kind of all over the place, and then just couldn't stop telling me about it. And I think that's it's kind of something to remember. As I hate it as an adult. I hate someone giving me a sheet straight after the show and saying, "What did you think?" So, well, I've got to reflect on it, and I think that's it. If where a work that's been created has got that kind of level of kind of intention and thought and respect for children's emotions and perceptions, I think that it works through in its own way and becomes a memorable and possibly transformative experience for some.
That's great. I want to flip that on its head slightly. We've all seen terrible children's theatre. We've all seen terrible productions that have toured schools or in theatres that have been really disappointing. Not at any of your venues, which is why you're my favourite venues. But so if we were going to flip that on its head as advice to people, what are the things they should be avoiding if they're thinking about making children's theatre? And you've kind of done this from the other side, so you've done lots of the things we should be doing. But what would be the things that people should avoid when they're starting to think about making children's theatre?
I mean, there should be a moratorium on glitter balls. And
very, very harsh.
Very,
like a glitter ball myself, but that might just be me.
But on a serious note, I think I'm kind of, Chris and Peter both definitely touched on this a little bit. It's avoiding the things that are cheap and easy and obvious. Like you got to, try and find the new and the original and the challenging. Don't go for the safe and the comforting because you think children understand the safe and the comforting. Actually, they're working out exactly what all children are working out exactly what the world means. That means that you're never in a better position to have a new idea or a new thought or a new form or a new technique introduced to you, because you're genuinely like, oh, I mean, I always think about this. I've done quite a lot of work with Shakespeare with young people, and they don't care. Like a 7-year-old doesn't care that he doesn't understand what a fardel is, because they don't know what another word is, like hourglass, that you might know what it is. And that's a great time to do Shakespeare with young people. Not the thing we do at the Unicorn, but I think, because, a young person is still a growing, evolving mind. So they can take new ideas, new things, politics, philosophy, art, aesthetics, everything, because they're working it all out. It's all a great big muddly mess, and they're not like the rest of us pretending we know some stuff.
The best production I've ever seen of Henry V was at the Unicorn. It was amazing. Sorry, I've interrupted. It's not my job to talk about my experiences. It's your job. So what are the other top tips not to do? So new, creative, going with the imaginative. What else might there be that people should be avoiding?
I think there's sometimes a temptation to think it's got to be interactive, and some, like, there's a role for interactive theatre, and interactive theatre is great if that's the conceit of the show, but don't just sort of shove it in halfway through because you think, oh, I'm working with kids, I've got to speak to them in some way. I think sometimes, you know, it's particularly when that just suddenly comes halfway through, it's just really jarring. If interaction is your conceit, then introduce that from the outset and make that part of what your show is, but don't just throw in a trick because you think it's what children's theatre should be. It's a pet hate of mine. There we go.
Great.
I think there's something really interesting also in what you learn from making theatre that mixes children and adults together. So if you like, family theatre, because I think, and I think, so therefore what I'm saying is you don't have to give all the answers. In fact, leaving young people wrestling with things they're not sure about or that they are struggling with can be golden. And I think I love putting stuff into family shows that you know it's not there for the kids. Actually, it's there for their parents or their carers or their adults or whoever's with them, because there's nothing better than young people suddenly turning around and looking at the adults with them. Why are they laughing at this and I'm not? What is it they're laughing at? And the kind of unraveling of that. And I think that thing, sometimes there's a temptation to put all the answers there, and actually that gives them the stuff to chew upon.
I think also just don't dilute the characters. You know, I think I've seen a lot of productions where I kind of think, well, it's these sort of 2D kind of almost cartoon-like characterizations, and actually, you know, make the characters in your piece as complex and as as multi-layered as people are in the world, and so spend time doing that in the same way that you would if you were working on, you know, Macbeth or the Cherry Orchard. It's the children are in the world, they're, you know, surrounded by complex people of all ages around them. That's where we are. Why create some kind of, you know, over the top cartoony characters just because you're creating a piece of work for children? And so I think that's a pitfall, along with the you know, the swirly lights and the bright clothes and you know, the gawky kind of expressions. So yeah.
I mean, for me, the worst thing is when the actor comes onto the stage with pigeon toes and pretends that they're a child, because ultimately the child, you know, pretending to be a child on the stage is little more than mimicking and demeaning the intelligence and the complexity of a child as a whole. So don't just be yourself. I mean, end of the day, you can play truth. So playing truth is not pretending to be 5 years old and indeed wearing a bright color and a funny hat just because you think that's what all children wear, because they don't, and they'll see straight through it. I mean, that's a very simple thing to say. But also, avoid overcomplication of language. Don't overwrite. Allow there to be space between words. And I mean words in the wider sense of the word. I mean, that could mean the choreography of a scene or the scenography of a scene, whatever it might be. Give space so that the young people can actually experience that in a heartfelt way, and don't do too much. So I think sometimes, I don't know, I go to see shows sometimes, and I honestly think I've been on a roller coaster. I've had every single experience you could possibly have in one play. Stick to something simple, profound, and important, because that, by unpacking that, you'll actually make a play that will have a real resonance with young people, rather than trying to do too much.
Thank you. You've segued us into the section that I'm really keen that we do get to. So if we can turn our focus a little bit now to thinking about tips or things that I guess there are several sections here, and some of you might have more to say about others. So what we're looking for is top tips on how to make work for your venues, or how to position themselves to start to be able to make work, or to be employed by you as freelancers or facilitators. So what are your top tips as individuals and also as venues to bring young people into your organizations, or advise people on how they can start careers or progress careers in this area? And what specific things might your venues be doing that people can interact with to start that process? Justin, go for it.
It's a really general thing, but which I think is true for all theatre making, but you learn, don't worry if you mess stuff up. Everybody's made shows that aren't that great. Everybody has. You actually learn way more from the shows that you don't get right, because you can spend your time afterwards thinking about how you didn't get them right. Some shows you do well, you don't really understand why they worked, but you can work out why something didn't work. So I mean, that's just, I would say that to anyone regardless of, but I just think that's the best thing. You know, people always think like, you know, you do a bad show, that's the end of it. It's not. Like, it's not. You just get back on the horse and give it another go. Like, that's fine. Doesn't matter. One, that doesn't matter in whatever you are, director, actor, designer. You know, nobody gets it right all the time. It feels that way, but it's just not the truth.
Thank you.
I suppose just talking specifically about progression, Selina, really, and where this whole program came from. And I thought it was really interesting that quite a lot of us used the word lucky in our description of our journeys at the beginning. And you know, and I'm acutely aware that, you know, yes, you make your own luck, but I think there is a randomness to how this industry works. You know, and you know, sometimes we were being approached by young people and saying, so how does it, you know, how does it work? What's the career ladder? You know, and it's like, well, there ain't one, and we've all come from very eclectic places and journeys. So I think progression was about just trying to increase the odds in favor of people, young emerging artists, as they begin to shape a journey or have an inkling of this is something I want to do. The way we've structured it at the moment is that we are, every 3-4 months, we explore a different aspect of theatre or the performing arts or the industry. And we've explored writing, we've explored sort of radical cabaret, and we come back to certain themes. But I think it really is about giving people the opportunity to, and it starts, each season starts with a generator night, which is where you can bring a 5-minute, 10-minute scratch piece, an idea, and just share it. And then through the season, it progresses to Charged, which is a more of a sort of formal showcase. And you know, we're wanting to reach the point where, with the other work we do, like the programming of the venue, and the Tramshed is slightly different in that it's not just a young people's venue, it has a wider community framework. But then we do program things like the Family Arts Festival. So all these different strands that we've got, we're trying to join them up so we can create progression routes for somebody to go on a journey, developing a piece of work, us supporting them. Now, we can't do that with everyone and every emerging company or every artist. But along the way, I think we've all got a responsibility, and I'm sure we're all doing it, is how can we bring people from the industry, and genuinely people in the arts want to share the experiences they've had, they want to share the skills they have, and how can we bring people in to give young emerging artists access to as much as possible, to increase the odds, because I think it is, you know, the odds are hard and they're stacked against, and certainly the economic culture, you know, I think it's a really disappointing thing. I don't know whether other organisations find this, but you know, partly because where we're based in Woolwich, the diversity of our youngest participatory programmes is massive, and all the way up through the programme, you know, and you can see it in our youth theatres, and on up then into progression and that graduate, it becomes less diverse. And I think at the end, that is, a lot of the time, that is down to the economic pressures that the communities that really suffer in our society still. And there is a pressure put on those young people to get a proper job, earn a proper income. You know, it took me a story, this is 3 or 4 years ago, took me a long time to work out why a young lad who always used to turn up to our youth theatre was a key member of it. He was a very talented young actor, always turned up with his football boots and his bag of his football kit. And he was asked one day, what's the story? And he basically couldn't tell his second generation Nigerian father that he was doing theatre and he was coming to the youth theatre, because the expectation was football was fine because we keep him fit, but he needed to get a proper job. And I think that's, how do, and I think therefore, how do resources come into this industry that allows people to be rewarded rather than, endless profit shares and whatever else?
Can I say, sorry, Peter.
No, do you want to? Sorry.
I was just saying, going back to advice, I mean, is don't copy the norm. Don't do what you think the children's theatre piece is. Don't necessarily do it in the space that you think you should place it. So bring to the table art form and style that is perhaps a little bit outside of the box. There's no reason why you can't have Kathak dance mixed in with whatever. There's no reason why you can't place it in your community space or in under a whatever. It might be an arch in a railway or whatever it could be. And also, because you look at music, music has grown and changed and shifted very rapidly over the last 20 years. Actually, theatre in many ways hasn't changed a lot than it was in Victorian times, where people come onto a stage, we all sit in our little posh seats and enjoy the experience. So I think in a way, be radical and bring to the table that outside the box way of thinking, because sometimes that will give great art and make younger artists realize that their skills are as great as anyone else. Someone who's been through drama school, great, but actually they may not have gone anywhere near drama school, but they're a fantastic communicator within their community, and therefore that is a way of telling stories, and use those stories as the beginning of your piece of theatre making. I mean, I think that's important.
I think there's also something to be said about, I know it sounds a bit of a cliche, but don't give up. Like, I can't tell you how many job interviews I've had. Just because I sit as the leader of an organisation now, please don't think that every job I went for I got. I mean, literally, I must have gone for 50 or more. Like, I've had more rejections than I have had acceptances. But I'm just stubborn, and I just basically knew what I wanted to do, and I just kept on trying. And, I don't come from a background where, this industry is nepotistic, but I do think that's shifting slightly. But I don't come from a background where my mum's the secretary, my dad runs a nursery, a plant nursery. I mean, like, I've got no historical connection to theatre whatsoever. I just bloody love it. And so I just have kind of clawed my way in somehow. But I just think, I know that sounds a bit, but it's possible. I guess it is possible, but don't be put off by rejection. And it's back to Justin's point, I think, about, be prepared to fail. Like, the more times you get it wrong, the more the more, sorry, I've just seen Justin's comment in the chat, the more you'll learn. And with the industry, it's the more reflective your practice is, the better you will be.
I was just going to quickly add that, and I think there's lots of really good, like, professional development programs and scratch programs that I know all of us run and lots of theatres run. But I think that one of the things I found difficult was to pick up a phone or kind of email people, because I thought, oh, they're like really big theatre people running these really big organisations. They don't want to spend their time like chatting to me about a little thing that I'm doing. And I just sort of, I remember, like, when early days of Chasm, there was a woman called Penny Barnard who set up Theatre Rights, and she came along. I was like, my God, Penny's here. I bloody love her work. I can't believe this. And then she stayed for a chat afterwards, and then she said, oh, I really enjoyed talking to you, Pete. Do you want to meet up for a coffee again? I can, and for like a year and a half, she just kind of became my mentor, really. And I think she was an extraordinary woman who had a huge influence on my work. So I think that's something I'd say. I think everyone's entitled. We're kind of, a lot of us are publicly funded. We're not in these big glass towers, and so just, it's you pick up a phone and say, can I pick your brain about something? Can you come and see something I'm doing? Can you, you know, give me 10 minutes to chat about this idea that I've got? Why did you do that? I thought this play you put on was really crap. Why did you do it? Whatever it might be. But I think that's something I'd say, just kind of have the confidence to do that, because actually when you do it, most people will turn around and go, yeah, I'd love to chat to you, you know.
I think Pete makes a really good point, and I would say framing it in terms of kind of have your coffee to pick your brains about something is always a really good way of doing it, rather than saying, what can you do for me? Go, can we have a conversation about something? And so often that leads to more conversations. That's happened for me both ways, you know, as a freelancer and as an artistic director. You know, it's been I couldn't endorse what Pete said more.
Thank you. I'm really aware we've only got 3 minutes left, and I've been saving a question for last. So I've left a really important question to last, and I've left us no time to answer it. But the question is, so we're all passionate about children's theatre. We've made that very clear. How do other people, how do we as a collective group of now 60 odd of us change the stigma attached to applied theatre? Not applied theatre, sorry, that's my day job. Children's theatre. How do we change the stigma that you've all talked about and all mentioned? What can we collectively do?
Just make loads of really great theatre. I think that's basically all people can do. Keep doing what they're doing. I mean, I don't think, like, I don't know. I feel like you're slightly chasing I think you could be chasing. I think we just all have to carry on making good work, seeing good work, and eventually people will get that it's good work. That's honestly what I think.
Make good work and shout about it.
I was going to say, write about it as well. You know, I mean, one of the things that's been a bugbear for all of us is just the kind of the difficulty of getting work reviewed, you know, and that's becoming harder and harder. So I think the more that people kind of reflect on the work, write about it, and let other people know about stuff that they've seen that's really out there or challenging or they think is really brilliant, you know, that will have a momentum in itself.
And I would say challenge people when those comments are made, when those remarks are made. We've got to fight our own corner as well, and I think it's not acceptable for, you know, and it happens at the highest levels, and it happens right through the industry, that, you know, and there's children's theatre as well. And it's like, you know, so much of the work has historically been groundbreaking, but we've got to big that up, and we've got to say, actually, you know, we lead so many agendas. So I think fight the corner. That's what I'd say.
Totally. Don't ever accept it as a stepping stone.
And make sure that you actually believe in what you're doing. If you believe, others will believe too. And I think that's really, really important.
That's a really nice ending, a really nice note to end on. Thank you for sharing tonight. I've really very privileged to be here asking you questions, and I've really enjoyed it. So thank you very much. And I can just see Andre arriving. Hello.
Hello, thank you ever so much, everybody. So just coming back, just to say a big thank you for Selina and all the panelists. Thank you ever so much. Thank you, Selina. Yeah, and a big round of applause to you guys. I wish the audience could be here to applaud you, because it's really kind of annoying webinar format, but yeah, thank you very much.